Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is a special episode of the Jim Stroud Show. And this episode features a very special guest. Would y'all let him introduce himself? His name is Chad Sowash. I call him the Chad. Go along with his blog. The Chad, if you would, sir, please grace us with your presence.
Thank you, Jim. You're far too nice, sir. My name is Chad Sowash. I am Chief Experience Officer over at RecruitMilitary. Jim and I go way back into the early days of recruiting. I remember one of the conversations you calling me back when the applicant tracking systems were just kind of new, this new cool thing, and we were talking about actual company resume databases versus like the you know, at that time, I mean, Monster and CareerBuilder were really it. But that I didn't mean to date us. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that might have been my younger twin brother.
Yeah.
My older twin brother. I'm much too young to remember those things.
Very nice.
Yeah.
But other than that, go ahead.
What are you? Tell me more about your gig and what you're doing these days.
Well, I've been, you know, obviously I've been on the online recruitment side of the house since you know, before Monster was Monster. So you know, was around during the .99 launch of Monster.com back in the days with Jeff Taylor skiing behind blimps and doing, you know, all that crazy stuff. The .com boom, right? Been in the military, did an active stint on the front end, and actually was in the U.S. Army Reserve, did a couple of deployments as an infantry drill sergeant down at Fort Benning, Georgia. And really, I mean, for me, over the past few years, being able to get to the point where I can actually help, you know.
Uh-oh, did we get a little...
Sounds like a wave.
A little static there. That was weird.
There you go.
Is that better? Okay.
There you go. You got a wave coming through there. I thought you were landlocked. But anyway, you know, 20 years retired. I've got obviously some online recruitment background. Help mainly companies better understand how to build talent pipelines. And for me, making a move to RecruitMilitary, who's been around for 15 plus years, it just made sense. Both of my passions aligned, and that's what I'm doing today. So I'm helping companies really focus on building real veteran hiring pipelines.
Yeah, and in addition to all that, maybe you're just being modest, but I know I've seen you on CNN a few times speaking on recruiting veterans and transitioning military, that kind of thing. So I've seen you online. I've seen you on the big screen of TV, as scary as that is. Yeah. And I definitely know that veterans and recruiting are your two biggest passions. Yeah, all that to say. So I was talking with someone the other day, and they were asking me for advice, and I was trying to razzle-dazzle them with some knowledge, but I really was at a loss. They were asking me, okay, what are some ways that they could recruit veterans? You know, and I got the feeling that they really wanted to recruit veterans, but they just didn't know how to. So what kind of advice should I have given them?
Well, that's really what we're looking at right now, Jim. I mean, right now, veteran hiring is kind of the sexy thing out there because it is the right thing to do, because we definitely know that, and we believe that the men and women in the United States military are the best, the brightest, and they've earned the right to be able to sit in front of you and interview for that opportunity. I don't think that there's anybody out there that does not believe that. The problem is the difference between the military experience, the military certifications, things of that nature. You really don't know what you're looking for as a civilian. You don't speak the right speak, or you don't speak their speak, I guess. There's no right speak. So it's really hard. So for me, I mean, definitely coming into this, knowing recruitment, knowing, you know, all the different niches, and we're always chasing talent. What do? It's pretty simple. You look for an expert to be able to help you and guide you. Because if you jump in and you don't know what you don't know, you're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of heartache putting things together that are really just going to fall flat on their face when, in most cases, you've got companies that are out there that are large, humongous federal contractors who've already created best practices. And at RecruitMilitary, we deal with thousands of companies on, from day to day. And we get to see those best practices. As a matter of fact, we institute and standardize those best practices. So, why go out and try to trip over yourself and do it again? Go in, find an expert to be able to at least give you some consults. I mean, even before you go into paying for something, get some consult, get an understanding of the market itself, really some of the things that you would have to go through, and then make that decision. So that would be my best, it's kind of like if your car's not starting, what do? You go to a mechanic, right? If you try to fix it yourself and you got a background to be able to fix it yourself, good for you, but most of us have to go to the mechanic. If you think that you're the mechanic in this case, you're probably not.
Yeah. When I was talking to them, I sort of wanted to commend them for at least having the mindset of wanting to specifically target veterans in their recruitment strategy, because I know that once you're in the military, and it depends on what you're doing, I guess, but you get highly trained in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that once you realize how much training that our veterans have, how much money someone could save, because they don't have to spend money to train them how to do something, because they come already prepackaged, ready to go after having done so much training, correct?
There's no question. I mean, one of the things that we do in the military is train. I mean, you train 2/3 of the time, and along with planning, so training and planning, and then you execute. One thing, and I was actually speaking, I was a moderator on a veteran hiring panel today. One of the things that we were talking about is just one of those components is leadership. When you're in the military, you are built to be a leader. You're made to become a leader. You don't go into the military to become a follower. You learn that you have to be a follower and how to follow, but you're trained to be a leader. So every time you're promoted, you have to go to leadership school. I've been to at least 4 leadership schools myself, and that's not the other specialty schools that I've gone to. So not only do we train every day while we're in our units, while we're in our companies, but we also do a ton of training outside of that, and tons more training than you see even in corporate America today. So you're 100%, you hit the nail on the head. We're used to training. We're used to being ready and fit to fight, per se. The same kind of thought process and philosophy is going to transition very nicely.
Someone was mentioning to me, actually the same person I was speaking to, they were saying how companies could also save a lot of money when they hire someone who's transitioning out of the military, because, unless I'm remembering correctly, the military will pay to relocate them somewhere one time once they're transitioning out. Is that correct?
Yeah. Generally what will happen, though, is most, not all, most will actually relocate close to their home of record, which is when they went in. And just like I did, when I came out, my home of record was Columbus, Ohio. I lived in Mansfield, and I relocated close and back to family, just because that's where your support system is. That doesn't mean that's where you're going to land at the end of the day. But yeah, Uncle Sam definitely pays your relo, but just knowing the behavior of how most people come out, they want to be able to come out somewhere where they feel a little bit more safe and they've got a support system. Because in the military, we're used to having that family, that team, that squad, that platoon around us all the time, and having that support all the time.
Why do you think so many veterans are having issues finding work? I'm referring to a couple of news stories where I've heard this. They're transitioning out of the military and it's hard for them to find jobs. And I'm wondering, is it just because the economy is so bad right now and they're just part of what's hitting everybody? Or are they dealing with certain biases that they shouldn't have to deal with as veterans?
Yeah, I don't know that it's so much bias as it is many of the transitioning military are going right into school with their 9/11 GI Bill. I mean, that GI Bill is amazing. It'll pay for 100% of tuition. It also pays for, depending on where you live, the amount. It pays for housing. It does some really good stuff. So if you're going back to, again, living around family or what have you, you've got really the means at that point to go to school, get an education, but yet you're still not employed. So that goes to the unemployment ranks, right? So that number, I've never been 100% on that number, that I believe that that's the actual unemployment amount because of so many going back into the education side of the house. But when it does come to people who are launching into the workforce and wanting to get into the workforce, it's incredibly important that they understand how to articulate what they did when they were in the military. I mean, we're talking about lieutenant colonels. Heck, we're talking about, NCOs who easily were able to, let's say, for instance, stand up a fire base in Iraq. There are tons of risk, all the different components that you would think of as a manager, not to mention having prospectively 20, 40, hundreds, thousands of people underneath you. What does that actually mean? So, being able to understand and really go back through your career, and this is what I tell every single veteran that I talk to, go back through your career and actually write out about yourself. And this is not easy for us because in the military, we're used to the team, and we focus on team. We don't focus on ourselves. So getting them to really focus on what did you specifically do and how did you affect the mission? How did you help the mission, obviously, to completion? And tell that story all the way from when you got into basic training, all the leadership, even in basic training, were you in leadership positions, all the way through to today. Get that obviously down in your story. Once you can tell that story to a company, then they'll really understand what you bring to the table. If you can't do that and you just say, yeah, we stood up a fire base in Iraq or in Afghanistan or what have you, what does that really mean to a civilian? It doesn't really mean much. What is a fire base? What does that even entail? How many people are there? How many were managed? What was the risk? There's so many things that we can do to be able to sell ourselves, which again, we're not used to, that we have to get good at. On the employer side, because I really see this as a shared responsibility, it's not just the job seeker, but the employer also needs to better understand what types of experiences, what types of certifications military offers. So it's a shared responsibility. There's a bridge, and you've got to cross it together.
How would you advise a company that's, say they're definitely targeting veterans, but they're not sure as far as compensation goes? Because you may find a really great candidate who is a sergeant major or something, and then you might see another one that's a lieutenant, and you're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to assume that a lieutenant makes more money than a sergeant major, but the sergeant major seems to be more qualified based on the stuff he's done than this lieutenant has done. Yeah. So any advice as far as around compensation? I mean, should they just think that a lieutenant should get X amount of dollars for their opportunity versus X amount a sergeant major would get? I mean, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does. Well, when you take a look at the experience, you're 100% right. I mean, you take a look at a lieutenant, and a lieutenant's going to have, many less years in the military. More than likely, they're probably still in. They're probably in National Guard or Reserve, where a sergeant major has tons of experience. And what it all comes down to is pay grade should be commensurate with, obviously, the experience. If you're looking at a sergeant major, even though that's a senior enlisted individual versus a lower officer level, that sergeant major easily could have had a battalion underneath them, which is well over 1,000 individuals, where that lieutenant might have had a platoon, which is 40. So there's a huge difference. Even though that was a non-commissioned officer, the amount of experience, risk, responsibility was so much greater. But just because he was an NCO doesn't mean that he's worth less. Definitely does not mean that he's worth less than the lieutenant. So when you're taking a look at really the officer versus the enlisted, really, that does mean something, but not as much as the experience. And again, that's consumer with, the salary should be consumer with the actual experience.
Tell me more about the website where you are now, and how people can find it, and what kind of goodies they can expect when they get there.
Well, one of the things that I love about Recruit Military is we've got a ton of different applications, different communication mechanisms to be able to provide outreach for companies to the veteran, the military transitioning community. The website is just one. It's recruitmilitary.com. This year we're doing over 67 job fair events across the United States, over 35 locations. Last year, this is amazing, last year over 100 veterans were hired in each of our events, average, and we did 63 last year. Exactly. So in one of the other things that I would ask of the recruiting community is, me, I come from the digital side, SEO and mobile, that stuff. And I took a look at job fairs and I'm like, wow, that's old school. Well, this community is a very in-your-face, wanting to see you. That's how we do business. That's how the military does business. So that's a great way to be able to get in front of them, to start that relationship, and that's the best experience for them to have right out of the gate. And obviously, it is an incredibly successful way of doing it. We just had a job fair yesterday in Norfolk, Virginia, and had well over 600 just veterans attend, and we had well over, I think it was over 60 companies. So having 60, almost 70 job fairs a year is huge, and it's a great way for the companies to get out into the military community, actually, shake hands, kiss babies, and understand who the community is. So that's another way. So we've got online, we've obviously have a candidate database, we've got a community, we've got the events that we do. We also have some very specialized events for leadership. So if the officers that are coming out, obviously degreed, highly degreed officers are coming out, we've got a top shelf event that we're going to have down at Minute Maid Park in Houston, where we're going to have a select amount of companies. They're going to have the suites Minute Maid Park, and we're going to bring in the junior military officers that these companies have actually identified that they want to be able to interview. They will have pre-interviewed them using the HireView platform prior, and then when we get on site, it's actually going to be more of a hiring fair or a hiring event than it is really kind of like a job fair event. So that's another piece that we have. I also have, which is really amazing, and there aren't really many niche organizations out there that can say they've got it taken care of from top to bottom, outreach, helping internally with training with companies, but we also have a recruiting arm. So I've got a whole recruiting team, placed a CFO just about a month ago, placing anywhere from 10 to 20 veterans in a week, couple of weeks in these companies, because they want it, they need it, they have to have it. But once again, as I'd said before, they don't know what they don't know, so that they come to the experts and they have us help them. So we do a ton of stuff, Jim.
Very cool. Very good. Very good to know. People who want to reach out to you personally and who learn about your site, I guess they go over to recruitmilitary.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, go to recruitmilitary.com. You can definitely just Chad at recruitmilitary.com, and just strike up the conversation. If you're serious about veteran hiring, definitely reach out to me. If you just want to throw some job postings out there, you can do that too. obviously, but I really want to be able to talk to organizations, and that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. We want to build talent pipelines that are going to last for decades, and I appreciate you having me on.
No problem, sir. Thank you, everyone, for paying attention, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, man. Later.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.